Well, hello. How are you? It's Yvonne here from Women's Fitness Adventures. Welcome. It is a little chilly, but I've been on a chilly little streak for the last couple of days. So let me just adjust some things here. Today I'm going to talk about, there's often several times in the year where we hear stories of hikers that need to be rescued or hikers getting into trouble because they're not prepared. So what I'm going to talk about tonight is just some tips about being prepared for our hike, what should be in our backpack. Now, I say this from a place of love and support and safety for everyone. And some of you, I know our members will use this and follow this because you're awesome. But if you're watching us and you don't know who we are, I'll explain why some of these things are really, really important to us. So Karen is here already. Hello, Karen from Claremont. So if you're watching live, please go ahead and say hello. If this is your first time seeing me here, welcome. I'm Yvonne from Women's Fitness Adventures. Women's Fitness Adventures, I started as a company just over 11 years ago, and we have taught, trained, and taken women on hiking adventures all over the world, like thousands of women we have had through our programs and on our adventures. So we've done, a lot of hiking in that time. We have a lot of experience. We have a lot of feedback from our members as well. So hello, Lynn. Hello, Kerry. Hello, Meg. Nice to see you there on the train home. And hello, Sandra from the Central Coast as well. So I'm often asked, and in pictures that I post on Facebook and places that we go, and hi Suze from Adelaide, why our packs look so full. And I remember a picture that we took in Corsica last year. We were sort of standing on the corner. We'd just come out of the supermarket, bought our lunch, put it in our packs, and the girls were standing there, and it was a great photo. And I put that photo on Facebook, and someone said to me, why are your packs so full? Is that a full pack? How far are you going? What are you doing? And I answered the question the same way I'm going to answer the question here. Our packs are full. They are not overnight packs. They are packs that we would take to be safe and secure on a day hike. Now, we often get asked, and our members know this, and hello, Fiona from Perth, our members know this, that inside our membership, we have a whole lot of resources that you can use. And one in particular, or there's probably a couple in there now, is how to choose a backpack. And we're often asked, and we teach our couch to mountainers as well, or anyone who comes into our world, about the literage, the size of the pack. Now, I'm not going to go into that in much detail here, but the relevance to tonight's topic on, what we should have in our packs to remain safe on the trail is that if your pack is not big enough, then you are going to have to make some compromises and leave some things behind. And those things are the things that might just be the safety things that you need. Because let's face it, the accident isn't what happens when the accident happens. The accident is the consequence of the decisions that you have the 3 decisions you have probably made before that accident happens. So have a serious think about that, because that's really, really important. So if you have got thinking, I don't need much stuff, if you've got like a 20-litre backpack and you go on a hike to Kosciuszko, Snowy Mountains, anywhere in Victoria or particularly Tasmania, or even here on the weekend on the border of Queensland, New South Wales, there was another rescue of some people who decided they'd go out on a Sunday hike on a track that they hadn't been on before, that was quite a difficult track and had got beaten up a little bit by the recent cyclone and weather that we had, and they got lost and they ended up having to spend a night, the rescuers couldn't get to them, having to spend a night on the trail when it got down to 4 or 5 degrees here, which is pretty unpleasant in a rainforest environment where the sun doesn't go in. So let me check. Hello, Leonie. Hello, Christine. And hello, Lynn as well. Lovely to have you all here. So if your backpack is not big enough, you have to make some choices about what goes in and what doesn't. And those choices can affect your safety on the trail. And I also said it's the 3 decisions that we make before, or don't make before the accident happens, that are the accident is a consequence of those 3 decisions. So I was chatting with one of our lovely members who was telling me the other day that something happened to her, and she said she thought of us. She wasn't with us. She thought of us when that accident happened. And she said all these things that we had not done beforehand. We had hiked continuously for 4 hours at a pace. We hadn't stopped to fuel. We hadn't stopped to rest. I was 10 minutes from the finish and lost my concentration. So all of these decisions to push on, to go faster, to not have that needed rest, were all leading up to the decision or the accident that actually happened. So have a think about that before you set out on your next hike. And hello, Ellen, as well. So coming back to why do our packs look so full? So there's 5 things that are really important to consider in our backpack. And the first is clothing for the conditions, not necessarily for the forecast. So I'm going to use Kosciuszko because it's a fantastic example, and anyone who's on our Couch to Mountain program and watching this or has done our program, and you're such good graduates, knows that in alpine conditions in particular, a whiteout can come in at any point in time. So we're up in, above 2,000 meters, which is not altitude, but it is enough to, where a lot of plant life doesn't grow. It's quite exposed, and clouds can roll in really, really quickly. So we need to make sure that we have the right gear for those conditions. So I've been on our Couch to Mountain program many times over the past 5 years, and I've also been in, Kosciuszko and those surrounds lots of other times as well. And I see loads and loads of people there. And the last time, with all sorts of gear and equipment, and the last time we were there, it was starting to rain on the way back. And we, of course, had our wet weather gear because you never know when there's a whiteout. And this young couple had literally shorts and a t-shirt, denim and cotton, which is quite heavy when it gets wet, does not dry, does not wick. And they were literally running down to their car because the storm was quite menacing that was coming. They had no raincoats, they had no umbrella. And to get wet, and wind comes in with a lot of storm out there as well, is quite a dangerous combination, especially if you have a long distance to go. They didn't really have a backpack either. They just had a bottle of water. Now that return hike on that trail that we were on was 22.5 kilometers. That's a long time without the right fuel, without the right equipment, and hydration as well. So clothing for the conditions, not the forecast. So we always say, depending where you are, but you need to get your mindset around this, that if you are anywhere where it's a colder environment, I'm talking, Southern Hemisphere, I'm talking New South Wales, Victoria, Tasmania, New Zealand, then you need to make sure that you have your wet weather and your thermal gear with you. Now, New South Wales might depend on the time of year, but a lot of our temperatures can change quite quickly. Even outback Australia in winter can get really, really cold, or the wind can blow. And so raincoats will give us that protection from the wind, because we don't want to get cold. Okay, so clothing for the conditions, not necessarily the forecast. Could be a nice bright sunny day on the roof of Australia, which is what it looks like outside, and the forecast is for that, but we know that mountain conditions can change instantly. So it's really, really important that, especially with us, that we make sure, and everyone does anyway, you're so good, that you follow the packing list and the conditions. Because I remember Kosciuszko a couple of years ago, we had 2 weekends in a row there. I went one weekend, Jane went the second weekend. Her weekend had complete whiteout, freezing cold temperatures, could not see a thing, needed every bit of gear they had. The forecast hadn't said that. The week later, I went, beautiful, still snow, but beautiful conditions, sunshine, and we didn't need all the gear, but we still had it. So just think about that environment, because, things can change really rapidly. Remember, it's those decisions that you make, the 3 decisions that you make prior to anything happening that could be, that are the result of what might happen. So the second one is take enough food and take extra food. Just because we have food in our pack doesn't mean we have to eat it all, but there is nothing worse than being hungry on a hike. So I'll share a personal story. I've done the Kokoda track in New Guinea twice now, once for my 50th birthday, and then we took I know not everyone does that. And then we took a group of girls back, or women back, with Women's Fitness Adventures a couple of years later. And the first time I went was just a personal trip. It was nothing related to Women's Fitness Adventures. And the second time was our trip, and I had a fantastic supplier who we use all the time. And the first time he changed our itinerary, and he literally condensed a 9-day hike into 6. So we were literally, it is tough, and you're pretty grotty and smelly and hot. And we were literally marching our way, across the Owen Stanley Ranges. And the food was quite sparse, and our porters had the bags, and there was about 2 hours to go, and they decided to go ahead and set up our tents and everything. And I'd had a fair bit of food in my pack, but I didn't have enough. And by the time I got to my tent, I was literally delirious for food, and I just ate anything that I could find. And it is not a nice situation to be in where you don't have enough food. So really important, you don't have to eat all the food. We always say take more than you think, especially if you're hiking 4 consecutive days. So, it's called afterburn. You hike one day, you burn the calories, and then your metabolism's pretty high. So the next day you're hiking and you're still burning the calories from the day before. So you've got this cumulative effect, which is a great thing to build our metabolism, but we need to make sure that we eat enough fuel to sustain us. And for anyone hiking, 90 minutes of sustained activity. So hiking for an hour and a half, and it's generally 2.5 hours before there's a break, you will take all your carbohydrate stores. So your body needs to know it's being replenished. Going on a hike, going on a multi-day hike is not a time to go on a diet. So making sure that in your pack there is enough food and some extra food, so that if you had to wait a while, if someone got injured, if someone hurt themselves, if you decided the lookout was, a really nice place to hang out for a while and you're out longer than anticipated, that you have enough food. Our team a couple of years ago went over to WA and they climbed Mount Bruce. And as they climb Mount Bruce, this combines point 1 and 2, clothing for conditions and enough food. So they're in WA. It should be in the northwestern part. Should be perfect conditions. They're hiking to the summit. I think it's the 4th highest peak in WA. A windstorm and rainstorm came in. Luckily, they had in their packs raincoats and rain pants, which are just standard for most of our hikers when we go on multi-days. And they had some extra food because they had to shelter on the side of the mountain for about an hour while this storm passed. They were starving and they were warm enough, but if they hadn't have had that rain gear with them, they would have been cold. And the storm came out of nowhere. So really important there. So hello, everyone else who has recently joined. So I can see Ellen and I can see Michelle, Kate, Christine, Marie, Elizabeth, Sharon, Alison, Dia, and Patricia. Nice to have you here. The third thing that goes in your pack. So if you think about your backpack, if you've got a small pack already, you're putting in the clothing for the conditions. So a raincoat takes up a bit of space, okay? And you want a Gore-Tex raincoat. I mean, if you're in Queensland in summer, you probably don't need that, but you want a raincoat that's actually going to do the job. You want to have enough food and extra. So you may have it in a lunchbox. So you think about the space that we're already taking up. And then you need water and hydration. And we always say to put more water in than you think. Water will weigh a lot. A litre is a kilo. And we do say for a day hike, unless you know that there is guaranteed water there, to take at least 2 litres of water. And possibly some hydrolytes, which is a different story I'm not going to talk about today. So an example is next week we head off on our Outback Queensland adventure, which is so exciting. And it is really cold at night, 3-4 degrees at night. I know that's not really cold for some of you. But when we get during the day, last year was a bit cooler, but during the day it gets up to like 24, 25 degrees sometimes. And that's what our forecast is looking for next week. But we were hiking back in from Carnarvon Gorge, so it's about a 20k return day. It takes us all day because we stop and admire everything that's there. But this man and his wife were really struggling on the way back. There were about 2 kilometres to go. And we come along, a big group of women around the same age as this woman there. And we said, can we help you with anything? Because they were really struggling. And they said, we've run out of water. We do not have any water. And of course, we all had plenty of water. So we're happy, more than happy to say, look, we can pour you some water from our bottles. And they were forever grateful for that. But we also saw people hiking along and they were out of water. And we said, have you got water or have you got water purification tablets? No, we're just going to drink from the creek. And the creek there, most creeks in Australia, most creeks in New Zealand, creeks, I'm not talking waterfalls, creeks, and in Tasmania may have cattle or other animals grazing upstream. Take it from someone who in their early 20s drank from a stream in Switzerland that she thought was the coming straight out of the Evian water purifier. It is not a very nice thing to get anything that comes from animals upstream. Drinking that is just the worst thing that can happen to you. So not only were we sharing our water, making sure we had enough for ourselves, but we were also sharing any purification tablets as well. So we always make sure we don't drink out of water. So out of streams. So if you think about the things that we're now putting in our pack, 2 to 3 liters of water, enough food and extra food, spare food, not to feed another nation, just to feed ourselves for a little bit longer should we get hungry, and clothing for the conditions. If you're in a really small backpack and you're out for a hike, you're already full. You're not going to fit anything else in. So the fourth thing that would go in a hike is our first aid kit and knowing how to use it. So there seems to be a lot of people watching. So please go ahead and say hi. I know our lovely members are here, Patricia, Lynn, and Anne. But if you're watching for the first time, hi, it's Yvonne from Women's Fitness Adventures. Please go ahead and say hi. And if you do have any questions or you have any advice that you would give to someone, please drop it in the comments and I'm happy to share it there as well. And I know our members are really cool with and really on board with what needs with what needs to go in our packs for a day hike, and can often look at other people and go, well, if something happened to them, they would not have what's needed. And it's a bit like insurance, right? You may think I won't need that, and you may not till you actually do. And that's why this is such an important topic. So the fourth thing is having a first aid kit, your own personal first aid kit, and knowing how to use it as well. So the first aid kit, certainly when we go on adventures and take our members, hello Denise, take our members on adventures, we have a big group first aid kit and we have, satellite and communications equipment as well, and we know how to use it. So we say to our members, please only take your personal stuff with you on a hike when you're with us, because we've got the big first aid kits. But if you are going on a hike on your own or a multi-day hike on your own, it's really, really important that you take a first aid kit and you know how to use that first aid kit. And certainly anywhere in Australia, that first aid kit should have a snake bite kit in there, and you should know how to use that snake bite kit. I've not seen many snakes in Australia in all of my hiking experience, but they are there. So it's really, really important that you have that snake bite kit and you know how to use it. Now, our leaders at Women's Fitness Adventures, we're trained in remote area first aid, and the guides that we use are all trained in wilderness first aid or alpine experienced guides. So that really makes a difference. You're in safe hands, but you're not always with us. So really having that first aid kit in your bag when you're not in this group experience is really, really important, and knowing how to use it. Now, how do you know what you need for hiking and how do you not know what you need? I would go on to no matter where you are in the world, any of the first aid organizations that will say, ideal for hikers, ideal for this, ideal for that, because the requirements are changing all the time. If I were to give you a prescriptive list, it may be outdated by the time you go and use it. So that would be the best place to do that. So if you think about those 4 things already that we've added in, so in our packs, we've got the clothing for the conditions. So the general conditions of, say, a mountain or the general conditions of a rainforest. And, making sure the clothing is, if you were to stay out there a little bit longer, or if the rainforest was wet and you had to walk through creeks, do you have that extra pair of socks? Not saying you have to take your entire wardrobe, but just making sure that you're aware of the conditions and putting in your pack what's needed. And, you may think, well, I don't want to carry all of that. But don't be the person that relies on everybody else. Don't be the person that other people feel they have to be responsible for. Be your own hiker, be that responsible hiker, because it makes it so much better for everybody else. Make sure you have enough food and extra for you. You don't have to cater for the rest of the group. Just make sure that you have enough food and some extras for you as well. Water, making sure you have 2 to 3 liters of water, or you have hydration, purification tablets as well. The first aid kit and knowing how to use it as well. And then the 5th one that you have in your pack is anything that you might need for safety and for common sense. So a lot of that may not weigh anything, but it may weigh something as well. So in your first aid kit should, of course, be a safety blanket, a space blanket, one of those silver blankets. But, what else should be in there to keep you safe, and what else should be in there for common sense? And I'm going to, just share this one here, and that's perfect. So a personal locator beacon if hiking on your own. So this week's example, and even, caravanning on your own, or I've just come back from this road trip inland from Melbourne to Brisbane, and there are lots of places in Australia where there is no internet, there is no connection. And yes, the emergency signal will reach up to planes if you're stuck, but if you can be self-sufficient and have this PLB, then, it is that reassurance to yourself. So a PLB if hiking on your own. And Anne says, this week's example of a German tourist getting lost in Western Australia. A personal choice if you're going a little remote. And absolutely, for the cost of them, and I know, Ellen, you have them as well, there really is, the cost of being safe versus getting stuck and not having any of this stuff is really, you just cannot compare. So these things for safety that are the personal choice also take space. And what you don't want your backpack to be is a handbag that requires precision on how to put things in and out. If it's cold, you may want gloves, you may want a beanie. If it's hot, you may want to be with an umbrella to beat out the sun. You will have sunscreen as well. You will have a hat. You will have sunglasses. You'll have your phone for taking photos, or a camera. So there are lots of different things. You may have water shoes if you have to cross a creek. So really making sure that what's in your pack is packing to conditions. And a good piece of advice when buying a pack is that, don't just buy it for that hike you might do in a warm, sunny environment. Buy it for all the hiking that you want to do. You don't have to fill a pack, but if you have a pack that's too small, you can't fit all those things that are really, really important in. And, it's several times a year that we hear the big newsworthy stories of hikers going missing, or getting lost. There are lots of stories that we don't hear of hikers needing to be rescued because they just didn't think about what they were doing, where they were going, and what their abilities were to manage that trail with safety. And, no one's going to, everyone will think better of you if you ask for advice before you go, rather than get stuck somewhere or have a mishap or an accident because you were either too afraid to ask or you didn't want to carry some stuff. So Ellen says, yes, she carries one. I know you do, Ellen, and it's very comforting to know I have it. And a lot of them now will record your distances as well, so give you a little feedback and stuff like that. So Michelle says, what is a good size? Now, Michelle, I know you're in the Couch to Mountain program, so you'll get onto that as the program progresses. But we would suggest anywhere from 32 to 42 litres. Packs are so much lighter than they used to be. The technology is changing so quickly. And we have a masterclass coming up, not the one next week, but the one after. So next week is on elevation. So the one in August will be on what's new in hiking gear. And there's some new backpacks out. So they are much lighter. The technology has changed so much. So you can go this bigger size without adding extra weight to it. And if you think, okay, well, I can't carry a pack that's 7 kilos, then maybe you need to think about what trails you actually go on and where you're going. And okay, maybe it's only 3 hours in my local bushland that's within, half an hour of my city that I live in, and I have good reception all the time. Maybe that's that type of hiking you need to do rather than the 5 hour, 2.5 hours drive away hike that takes you into a more rugged area where there's less people around and you can't be self-sufficient. So really important to think about those things. But, safety is something that we should all think about. We should all have at the forefront. We shouldn't let it scare us, but we should always think about when I'm going on a hike, what do I need to assess for? Who do I need to let know? Do I need to check trail conditions? Will there be any other people around? And what should go in my pack? So Anne says, here, this is lovely as well. Thanks for sharing, Anne. Friends I hike with, just short day walks, always ask why I carry such a big pack, but they always accept my nuts or snakes when we've been walking for an hour. Yeah. And that's perfect example of what I said before, Anne, is you don't want to be, and Anne is the person that is then helping others become, that others are relying on. You want to be a person who may hike with the group, but still be an independent hiker in that group, right? Otherwise, you're a freeloader. And, if you've agreed that in the start, that's fine. But, if everyone's coming to you for snacks, if everyone's coming to you for extra water, if everyone's coming to you as first aid, then you're technically a leader and you need to think about what that means for you as well. So thank you for sharing that, Anne. I think that's really, really important. And it's okay to do that, but I'm just saying for safety for you, try and be as independent as you can in terms of what you carry in your bag and making sure that if, without catastrophizing anything, if worst case were to happen and I had to sit out here for a bit longer because I've sprained an ankle or someone sprained an ankle, or I might, we need to help someone else out and sit here for a couple of hours, have I got the right gear and stuff like that? Sue says, what is backpack size is the maximum for airline carry-on? Great question, and this always comes up with our groups all the time. I have never, ever been knocked back with my backpack. So I take it my 32 to 42. I don't stuff it full, but I do have in there, and we say this to all of our members going on all of our hikes is, and I know all of our members who go on their own hikes now because you're members and you are savvy to this, is you always pack in there your hiking clothes and your empty water bladder as well. So what you would need if your luggage got lost, would you have enough stuff to wear on day one or day two until your luggage is reunited with you? So you're not stuffing it full, but you're putting in there the things that are essential should your luggage not catch up with you. So, and we'll go through that, Suze, because I know you're coming on adventure with us soon. So we'll go through all of that as well. So great question. It also depends on what airline you're flying as well, because some are more strict than others. And yeah, so we'll go through all of that, but great question as well. So lots there to think about, but hiking safety and what's in our pack, just capping off the 5 things again. Clothing for the conditions, not the forecast. So think about the environment that you're in and how quickly that weather may or may not change. Have you got enough food? And have you got carry-on? Have you got enough water and hydration tablets if you need them? And if you don't know what they are, for our members, there's masterclasses on that. Or have you got water purification tablets if you need to filter some water? Have you got a first aid kit? And do you know how to use that first aid kit? And certainly if you are in Australia, everyone, even if there is a leader on the group, you should have a couple of first aid snake bite bandages between you and knowing how to use them as well, and safety and common sense, packing that PLB if you have one. Obviously in a group, there should be one or two, but knowing also in that, what happens if you get lost? What's the protocol? What's the risk assessment? What happens if someone hurts themselves? So lots of things to go in a pack. So if you are new and watching this, a new member, please don't buy anything. Just ask questions. Ask everyone in the group. There are lots and lots of members with great experience who, have gone through this very same process. You can spend a lot of money on something that may not be right. So just take your time. So let me just check in here. Kerry says she's taken a 46 litre with cinched in straps as a carry-on with no problems. Brod takes her 36 litre on board with her boots and hiking clothes, less than 7 kilos, and especially international, 7 kilos is and your device charges as well. 7 kilos is technically the limit for your carry-on overseas. I always put my laptop in there as well when I travel, because I'm generally working at night, or it's a just-in-case safety blanket for me as well. Not when I go hiking, but it is there. So that is it. There are 5 things that we consider to go in our packs, and that's why our packs look so full. But technically, they're not full. They look like they have enough to keep us safe, and people know that because we have been chased across the volcanic fields of Iceland for, have you got this in your pack in our first aid? And we have. So, be that independent hiker, even if you're part of a group, because it does make such a difference to be self-sufficient and confident and capable. And it really levels you up for the type of hiking that you want to do. So that's it from me. If you have further questions following this or you're watching on replay, please ask away. That's what I'm here for. Thank you to all our members for your contribution and for showing up. And I look forward to connecting with you again next week. Thanks.